Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your friend, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. Her name is Kareen Walsh. Hey, Kareen, how are you?
Hey, Cesar, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here on the show. Before we dive in, I want to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background. Kareen is a startup advisor, investor, serial entrepreneur, executive coach, healer, author, and podcaster. She is the CEO and founder of Revampologist LLC, a seven-figure boutique consulting and coaching company. She has 17 plus years entrepreneurial and executive experience leading and advising industry leaders. Her unique approach in her service-based business has a lens of people, process, and technology, and hyper-focus on leadership to help business scale. Clients include trillion-dollar companies like BlackRock, Groupon, Broadridge to startup companies getting ready to launch. She has built a seven-figure business by helping source the expertise her clients need and coaching leaders on how to align what they love with what they do and monetize it. She believes if you are not growing, your business won't grow, and uses her books, Lead with Value and Be a Badass, along with her podcast, Your Badass Journey, as ways to share the methods of personal and professional growth with you. Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. Like, what else do you do, right?
I know, right? That's just the skim of it. I mean, to try to put your bio after all these years into a paragraph, you did a great job reading it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Kareen, let me tell you, like, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, where are you originally from? What was your upbringing like? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, sure. Of course. So I basically am a daughter of immigrant parents. I am Middle Eastern, so my family is Palestinian Lebanese. And what was fortunate for when I was conceived over there, my father got an opportunity over here in the States, and they came over pregnant with me. So I am truly American, is how I see it, with a lot of cultural influences. And I was raised under a father who was really success driven and a mother who had very strong values in how we connect and relate to people. So it's literally the baseline of everything I do was how I was raised. So, and I was raised here on the East Coast mainly, but I'm one of those, I'd like to say I have Bedouin blood from being from that side of the world, because I have moved across this country, I think like 13 times. It's been insane. I should have owned a moving company because I moved so much. But throughout my adult life, I've lived in several places.
Yeah, no, got you. Now, let me ask you this. Obviously, you were born here and your parents were not from America.
Right.
Growing up, though, like, was there any challenges? Did you feel like you didn't fit in? Do you feel like anything different? Right. I mean, just for that.
Of course. Yes, of course. Because, the American way is like a conformed way, right? Like it's based on judgment. It's based on oppression. It's based on you must fit in order to belong and succeed. And however, that's not what actually makes America great, or like makes us who we are and why we love being part of this country. And so I truly had that influence of go after what it is you want, but also learn how to fit in. Because if you can fit in, you can then take advantage of the systems you step into. Like if you're don't come in threatening, but come with purpose, or come in with service, a heart of service, then you could find your way. So for me, it was a language. Also, for my first language was really Arabic, was what was spoken at home, but that's not spoken anywhere.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like very, very rarely, right? And so I remember coming home one time. I was like 5 years old, and I was like scolding my mother because she was talking to me in Arabic, and I was like, "We are in America. You will speak English," you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because I was so stressed being at
yeah,
school, not understanding what was going on, and that's not their main language, and then coming home to it. So that was a dynamic that I had to
yeah.
deal with. And I would say that it helps me be a really great translator because I have to
Mm,
listen harder,
gotcha.
is what I got from that. And then, I feel stupid for not speaking back to her in Arabic because I can't speak it very well, but I do understand it.
Yeah.
Things like that where I just was trying to fit in. I'm also curvaceous. And in the society I was brought up in here, most of the girls I was around didn't look like me. So I also felt very, I was like the dark curly haired girl. Like it just was a very different environment, but I always try to be relational and connect and not come with judgment that I was being judged for in
Hmm.
order to build the relationships I have. And but that was another kind of difference from a cultural standpoint.
Yeah, got you. There's two things you mentioned. I want to tap into that. Before we tap into that, though, I wanted to find out. Growing up, we always have this idea of become and or you can be whoever you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And then as we're developing, obviously I think it's a little bit different, either for someone like you or myself too. I was born in Mexico City and I came here when I was 10. So we always have this idea of the cultural aspect or what our parents would want for us to be versus somebody that might be full-blown American, even the parents, right? So there's always
Yeah.
that notion of following that. Except, what was that one thing you wanted to follow or you want to become, essentially after high school and going to college or things of that nature? What was that one dream or things you wanted to be?
I would say, well, if I were going to like a dream state, which was, more younger than that, of like,
Mhm.
those questions of what do you want to be when you grow up? And initially there was this side of me that thought I would be like a fashion designer,
Okay.
and I thought I was going to pursue that. And so I always had the arts as like an underlining part of fulfillment for me. But my mother was always like, you're not going to earn any money through the arts. It's like, we don't need you to be a starving artist. So like get your business degree first and then figure out how you can like plug in artistic things there. And it was, I definitely was brought up in a culture that education mattered,
Gotcha.
because that's the advantages you get when you, at that time, a college degree was worth way more than it is today. And so I remember applying for colleges and I was like art schools and then business administration. Had no clue, right? Honestly, like who does have a clue at 18?
Right.
Nobody,
Right.
it's just such a pressure to put on people at that age. So what I did was I went through the process of getting the degree. Was not an academically inclined person, but I was fortunate to get into George Washington's business school, George
Okay.
Washington University. And I was very lucky that I was in a pilot program that mimicked an MBA. And so I realized about myself that if it's not immersive, then it's not for me. I have to go in deep and fast and get out. And so what I realized with the business education, it was like I really could do anything with that because behind
Mhm.
everything is a business model.
Right.
And I had no idea what type of career I wanted, but I knew that I wanted to lead. I knew that I wanted to make a difference. And I definitely had a knack for bringing people together to accomplish something. It really wasn't until I turned 30 that I launched my first company. And that then I found like entrepreneurship was totally my game because I love change. I love challenges. I'm very much into complex problems. And then I can be really creative in how I step into strategic work. But then I can also work with the marketing departments and the creative departments and like, how do you represent what this product and the service is? So I'd say I really didn't land on what I wanted to be, because I always found that I come with a bag of tricks and then I see where it can be leveraged. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And so, for those that are listening, and you said you at the age of 30, it's kind of when you started your own first company.
Yeah.
A lot of times I hear this idea that it might be too late for me to start something, right? Or
Right.
or I'm too young to even know what to do, right? What would be your advice? Obviously, again,
Yeah.
the idea of, there's an idea of what we want to become when we
Yep.
grow up. Oftentimes doesn't work out. And again, as you mentioned, many of us, we go to school, and sometimes we take some classes, or we particular degree that is not even in the field we're working on, right? And so that's just part of that. So what would be your advice based on that journey, the lessons learned, and the fact that, hey, even at the age of 30, whether you think, some of us might think that's too old, some of us might think that's too young, you still started your first company. And that's the biggest challenge, because
Yeah.
people end up falling under that spectrum of, well, am I too old, am I too late to the
Yeah.
game?
Yeah. Judgment doesn't lead us anywhere, right? Like, it's when we are constantly self-judging and taking on the judgment of others as to what
Right.
our success model is. Like, it is so crazy to me. What's amazing, I should backtrack. What's amazing to now, the time now, is like, you literally can learn anything about any industry and how you fit into it based on your skill set at any time. You can either pay
Right.
for it through formal education, or you can literally go onto YouTube and like learn it. Like, it is insane, the information age we're in right now. But what you're talking about is the belief in self. What you're talking about is the mindset, the opening of, how do I know that this is right for me? Or I want this, but everyone around me is like, no, 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 go do this. Well, never let the limitations of others become your own. That's my number one saying. I find that we are brought up in a limited mindset because we have to check a box or get an A, or like get that promotion, we have to show up a certain way. But we choose what system we step into, and the reason why I launched my first company at 30 was because I was in other people's systems. I was in that judgment cycle, or that, here's the system I have to step into and master in order to achieve, in order to receive my value of that achievement in someone else's business. And I found that this is exhausting. This is not even aligned with my value system or my skill set. I'm not even maximizing who I am. I'm sure you have people watching and listening right now who are tired and fatigued of just collecting a check without being passionate about how they show up every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it really became that kind of shift for me to realize I am the master of my own domain. I am the one that sets the rule. And if I don't know something, now I can find it out. I mean, it is so fast to find out. And I also think that people investing sometimes in the mentors and the advisors before the education, right? Like, it's to understand, how did you get there? Like, go find the people who are ahead, because I guarantee what you're thinking about doing has probably been done before, but maybe not done in your circle at your age, or maybe it's that product needs refinement, needs to come out, right? But it's for you. Those messages are coming to you and for you. Right. So how do you get ahead? Go talk to the people who have done something similar and say, how did you get here? What was your process? What would you do different? Yeah. And that's how you accelerate your growth. As you go to the people who've gone before, and then get on that education path, or immersive certifications, or even shadow, like, see if you could go shadow that person and say, can I see what it looks like to be in your shoes for a week for free? Gotcha. See how that comes, and then go launch your thing. Or you realize there's a business you want to be more a part of, and you go work for them because they have aligned values to you. And there's so many ways these days to create wealth and to follow your dreams and go after it. But it all starts with your mindset, all of it.
Yeah. And kind of to add to what you mentioned, I have here in my notes that you said, your path is yours to follow and no one else's. And you're right. I mean, oftentimes, we're following somebody else's path even when we don't realize it. And come to think about it, is like, you got to follow your own path, right?
Yeah.
And so
like when you started your business, when you started launching in real estate and everything, right? Was that something you dreamt of initially?
Nah. Initially, no. Right now.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
And so when you started to go into it and really step into it, did you know anything about it?
No.
No, right? But now
Right.
look at you. Like it because you're consistent, you took action, it started to fulfill a need for you. You started to get excited about it. You love a big deal, you'll go after it, right? Like there's all this alignment that you found, but you cannot find that alignment without trying,
Right.
and I think that's needs
Yeah,
to be
and
heard.
I was gonna say, and it goes back to what you mentioned too, is being able to get to an extent, being able to find somebody that has already done it, and you go out and do it. Again, oftentimes, I mean, I too have an MBA, and I'm not saying nothing about, I'm not knocking traditional education. By all means, is great. I've been there.
Yeah.
Except again, I also know a lot of people that have spent thousands of dollars getting student debt to get a degree that is not serving them, where you can probably just turn around and take a portion of that money and hire a mentor to
Yep.
teach you something you actually have genuine interest for,
Yes.
that is going to
Yeah.
help you get there, even better and faster and cheaper than traditional school per se.
100%. And I love that because it's not shared enough.
Right.
Those stories of like, go find the people who have gone before you, learn from them. And now everybody's a content machine.
Yeah.
So there's so much information.
Oh yeah,
out there, right?
get them out
like,
for sure.
There's so much to learn. But I love that you just said, like, invest in a way that actually helps you advance by other people's lessons learned, like it's your whole branding around you can overcome anything. It's also that overcoming, that piece of overcoming, those are where the lessons are that other people can benefit from. And it's so great that you have this platform to share those type of stories, because someone needs to hear it, so they go after their own dream, their own vision. And the other thing I also like to say, Cesar, is that I reserve the right to change my mind. So what happens also when we are conformed in these systems is that we think we have to be that hamster in the wheel and keep stepping into someone else's system. However, if you just change your mind and say, no, there's something better for me out there, and you're stepping off that wheel to go and do this exploration for what's next, that's also okay. It's okay to change your mind with a strategic plan of what you're going to go after next. But so many people feel so stuck of, well, what if I walk away from this addiction to this check and then I don't know what I'm going to do next? Well, go discover what you want to do next while you're still collecting that check, and start investing in yourself that way.
Right.
There's like so many different tracks you can be on to go after what you want.
Exactly. Earlier today, you were talking about two things that really resonated with me, and you talk about purpose and service, right?
Yeah.
And I want to go a little bit deeper on that, just because I think that oftentimes, one of the things that we as people keep seeking for is that purpose, and being able to define what that purpose might be. And then even further, when you talk about service, right? I really enjoy that, because again, I think it was Zig Ziglar that mentioned, if you give enough people what they want, you'll get anything that you want, right? Essentially, and that comes the idea of that service. Yeah. And so, kind of dive into that, and I want to get that from your perspective of, even becoming a serial entrepreneur, how those two actually have played a role in your career, in your journey.
Yeah, no, great questions. I think people think purpose is like, almost sometimes when you say the word, it feels really heavy. What's my purpose? Like it has to be this grandiose statement, right? And it could be something as simple as like, my purpose is to teach somebody something new every day. Like my purpose is to show love to whoever I interact with. Like purpose is something that is so embodied and so aligned with who you are. It's actually quite easy to define, and so for me, like my purpose is to make sure everybody that I exchange my values with and receive value from, right? That's that Lead with Value book that you mentioned earlier that I talk about. It's all about this value exchange, right? That every time I am showing up with my values known, so that I can understand their values that they're giving me, but also that they know that they matter and what they want matters. Like anybody who interacts with me feels seen, feels heard, and know they matter, right? And that's my purpose. It's like I'm meant to help them rise up to who they're meant to be, their fullest potential. And that's what I build all my services from. So then you talk about service, right? As a service-based business, which is most of the businesses I'm in, I am invested in some product businesses, but I make sure that there is an alignment of value for the services my team provides and how I show up in the room, but also it's aligned with a value system that I believe in for my clients that I work with and how we all work together going forward. So I do have a heart of service. That is something I realized really young. It got taken advantage of for many years. Many years it took me, Cesar, before I learned my true worth in this world, and that I didn't have to expend myself in order to earn. I had to really reconstruct that story in order to truly provide a fulfilling life. But that is, how to show up in service. I come from the heart. My top 3 values are love, creativity, and integrity. And if those 3 values aren't showing up in an exchange with other people or in the businesses that I build or the team that I put together or the clients that I attract, it's not for me, And I cannot, if I don't have that right value exchange, show up in my purpose, because then I'm being taken advantage of, or it's like too combative, or it's not aligned with like how I want to show up every day. So they do have to integrate, in order to find a level of fulfillment and feel successful in what you're doing.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I really love the way you talk about purpose, because you're right. A lot of times, it is this huge, heavy aspect of you're trying to search for it and look for it. And I didn't think of it from that perspective, that, it doesn't have to be that complicated or complex as people might make it seem. Is being able to just create a small purpose that eventually will, open up other doors, and it will lead to something bigger and greater, right? Except again,
it's from the inside.
Yeah,
it's from the, but your purpose is from the inside. And I think a lot of people make it complex because they feel like it's an outward facing thing. It's like from the inside is your purpose. How you show up in it is your service, and I think that's really important distinction for people to start feeling less heavy about it and be like, what is my inner purpose? Now, how do I build everything around me to align with that purpose is the fun part,
Yeah, definitely. And then you talk about everything's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. There's an African proverb that talks about when there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that do us no harm, right? And I believe on that a lot, because again, the biggest battle, the biggest war, obviously there's a lot of things happening in the world for sure, and we can see that. Except again, for a human being, for an individual, the biggest war taking place is the one inside your head, right?
Yes.
And so that can either make you or break you. Obviously, you've gone through a lot, and you have a very good journey of just being around the right type of people and doing all of that. Except before that, how do you start working on getting your mind in the right path or in the right way? Because that's the biggest thing. Is like, well, how can I start getting focused and working on my mind? How do you do
it? I mean, I think it's an awareness. First of all, it's an awareness when something doesn't feel like a fit, or if you're constantly sitting in a judgment energy, or if you're saying, and here's what judgment sounds like in your head: I can't and I don't. If you're constantly saying the not statements, you're sitting in a ton of judgment. So you have to ask yourself, well, how can I? And what is for me? And what is the ability to step into that? A lot of us, unfortunately, in these days, because we are so inundated with a lot of BS information, right? It starts to cloud the mind. And what I mean by BS information, it's all the interwebs and all the social platforms and all this ability to allow crap into your mind and muddy it up. And so your belief system starts to get challenged if you don't have a strong core belief system in who you are and what your purpose is and what you're meant to stand in this life for. So you have to also filter that out. You have to find your filtering mechanisms to say what is true to me and what's the BS I need to ignore. And I don't think people do that enough. I really don't. And so that's created a clouded mind. Right. So first it's the awareness, like, am I standing in a cloud? Or am I actually clear? When someone asked me recently, like, what, in another interview, like, what is your superpower? And I say, I bring clarity. Like, clarity is my superpower. We remove all the muck and get clear on what is it that you want? What do you stand for? What do you want to go after? And have a space to actually dialogue on it without judgment. because judgment is the first thing we're so used to listening to that stops us, right?
Right.
So I'd say that is the first part, is the awareness recognition. And I was not always like this. I'm telling you, like,
Yeah.
if you grab my Be a Badass book, that has all the tools into how I became who I am now. But it was a journey, a lot of judgment, a lot of self-loathing. I mean, I was sitting in this energy of like not believing in myself, not feeling great about myself, not and all the not and the don't statements. You see, I'm even saying it, right? Like literally that was my mindset, because I had been crushed down so hard from my own belief system to belong. And I had to redesign the whole thing. So how did I do that? I went and found the experts. From the last few years, mental health game is on point finally to start representing that we are being challenged and we need the help, right? But it's been a dilemma of especially in this country for a long time, so it took something so severe for all of us to start paying attention and have a conversation. Say, I actually had my therapy session today. I talked to my coach today. I went to this, healing session, like to make it normal to actually say, I'm not well and I need help from a mental standpoint. I think was my own journey on my own path before it became so easy to talk about, was how I started to reprogram, to unprogram, I should deprogram, because I had to deprogram all the beliefs that were not meant for me to then reprogram into who I truly am today. And that's been a journey, and I'm always working on it. Honestly, like it's part of the thing that I think you always have to focus on, because there's rites of passage that happens in our life that can create micro traumas and shift our belief system that we need to work through and continue to ask, well, what's true to me right now? And now how do I take that and go after what I want? And, it takes consistency to get there.
Yeah, no, and I like the idea of being aware and doing that. And again, we're so easily judgmental towards ourselves before anybody else, right? I mean, I know before too, and even when I didn't do something right, or things were not going well, right away you start telling yourself like, man, you're dumb, you're stupid, you start calling yourself names, and it's like you wouldn't do it for somebody else, yet you're so easily up to doing it to yourself. And I'm like, why? Right. And so that's part of that. And definitely you drop so many different golden nuggets there in terms of being able to get your mindset right. So hopefully everyone that's listening was able to get all of those different things. If not, go back and hear it again. So where did the idea or how did the idea of becoming a publisher or an author, come about, having both your books, which one came first and what was the idea behind that?
Yeah, no, great questions. So Be a Badass, 6 Tools to Uplevel Your Life was the first book I published because it was just a goal of mine. Like I was like, write a book. I had no idea at the start of that year what that book was going to turn into, but I gave myself a full year of a process to figure out, what does it mean to write a book? Like, what is the book about? Like, can I even write, like all the things. I
got to tell you, we kind of have similar stories. When I did my very first book, it was the same thing. Like, I'm not a writer, what am I going to, essentially that, and talk about, talking yourself out of it and being judgmental. That's exactly what I was going through my head when I did this book, and I talked myself out of doing it because of that. And not to cut you off, I know you mentioned something, like you first did something as an accomplishment. And I got to tell you, for me, when I changed the dynamics and talking about the mindset and also it's there, I know that for me, when I first looked at writing the book, there were so many negatives as to why not to write the book.
To do it.
And I changed the framing and the thinking and the mindset. And I said, what if I just do this for me as a self-accomplishment? And that's it. There's nothing else. There's no other reason.
Doesn't have to go anywhere. Right.
Yeah. And when I did that, it changed the way I saw things from a different lens. I just literally finished my book super fast, and it was really good. And I'm glad I did at the end. So I'm sure that was your.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's so great. And look at now, if you didn't put it out there, where all these people would be from taking your advice and listening to your methodology and like how your beliefs have chartered where you are today. Like, it was a journey of, can I do this initially? but it had to come from a place of trying, like I do everything, it literally was, let's see what you can get done by the end of the year. Can you actually accomplish this? But also, does it align to actually get it published? So it's similar, but I'll tell you what happened to me though. So I started writing. The way I set my goals for writing was to just write 10 minutes a day, just to get something out of my system. Because I didn't know, this was like the first 3 months of the process. And I didn't know if I was a writer. I didn't know what I wanted to write about. Do I have a story here, or is there a methodology? All the things, right?
Right.
And so I would write 10 minutes a day. And then eventually I was like, I think I need a writing coach. So because like I told you, I'm like, if I don't know it, I'll go hire for it and figure it out from people who've gone before me so that I can accelerate getting it done. So I got this writing coach and we started editing, and we put this, it was like, I don't know. I would like to say it initially was like all these random stories kind of like chunked together, trying to figure out a thread, doing the editing back and forth. And I remember I got to a point, I think it was by that summer, I had like a almost 300-page freaking book. It was insane. Yeah. And I was going through it and I was like, ugh, who cares? Like literally was my reaction. I'm like, no one's going to read this. I don't even want to read this. And I took the whole manuscript and I scrapped it. I was like, this is not the book I meant to write. But what it did do for me was gave me context of specific stories, and also realizing anything I write and anything I do, someone has to get value out of it. Like that's one of my pieces. And I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I give people in a book that tells them a little bit about me, but gives them my tools, gives them. And then that's literally was written in like 6 weeks once I had that clarity. But the effort, I'm just saying, sharing this with people listening and watching, it's like, until you try, you don't know. Right. And it's okay to be like, yeah, this is fine, but let's scrap that and take what you need out of it, in order to put that forward. And so that was a fun journey of getting that book out there. And then, I created a course from it. Because it's a methodology in there, it literally is sharing. BADASS is an acronym. And their I am statement. So that mindset piece is in that book. And then you get exercises in it, or actual tools that took me to build my 7-figure business practice, to stand in authenticity of who I am. All of that is in that book. And that felt really good to be able to share, because these were the questions people were coming to me for. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like, I can't keep repeating it. So here's the book. Right. Right. Because I've moved on, but you still need to know these things. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was that book. And then Lead with Value was initially it was a challenge from one of my mentors and business coaches. And he's like, can you have a book around leadership together in less than 8 weeks? And so he challenged me. I love a good challenge. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I was like, I think I can. You're challenging me. Of course, you think I'm capable too. So that's what I did. And so Lead with Value is how I actually advanced in my career, how I built leadership chops, and also as becoming a leadership executive coach, how I train and support my leaders that I work with in building a value-based leadership stance. Yeah. So that's what that second book is, and got launched a year later after the first one. Yeah. No, that was awesome. The journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, that's awesome. So tell me about now your practice, right? And what is it that you're definitely coaching, pretty top tier individuals or companies, right? So tell me more about that, and really how people can also find you if they wanted to work with you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So basically, I built my initial business off selling my own time for money as consultancy, right? I'm the product service, selling myself into clients and doing the work that way. And I started to build a really strong reputation that way, to the point where they asked me for additional services that were not my skill set. And I had built my company that way. My Revampologist is my boutique consulting firm. And then from that, it got me in the room with C-suite leaders, and the ability, all these questions kept coming to me. Okay, how do I do this? Or Kareen, this is the scenario. What would you advise here? And that started to naturally build my executive leadership coaching practice. But then what it really turned into, because that was I've been in business now 12 years. And so that was like the first 4 or 5 years. That was the focus. And then it started to turn into all these entrepreneurs tapping me on the shoulder. Hey, you built a successful company. Like, how do I do that? Or how do I turn my career into an entrepreneurial venture? And so I started to build more entrepreneurial coaching practices and programs and workshops in order to help people really take advantage of their skill set and start to build the entrepreneurial life that they desired. So all things Kareen are at KareenWalsh.com. If you go to KareenWalsh.com/links, you will get access to some of my workbooks. Like, these are free giveaway things you can download. And I have one, if anybody from this conversation is thinking like, well, how do I align with my purpose? How do I get clear with what I truly want? How do I jump into action? I have a workbook called the Strategic Life Planning Workbook. It's on KareenWalsh.com/links. And you can download that. And then when you download that, you actually get 3 audio links to walk you through the workbook, and all for free to get you started on like how to get clear. And then from that, you want to work with me. Obviously, there are links there as well to book time and have strategy sessions or whatever is going on in your business. If you need an advisor, just reach out. You know, like I said, I'm a heart of service. I don't know. I also tell all my friends and family, I don't know how to turn this off. Like you and I at dinner, we'd be talking about whatever's going on with you, and I would probably be solving some things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to turn it into a business to make it worth all my time. But like, honestly, reach out, ask a question. Happy to support. And I'm on Instagram daily, sharing my rituals, sharing support there, some, tips. That's Kareen Zahr Walsh on Insta. And you can always DM me there too and ask some questions, or LinkedIn. I'm on.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Those are my 2 main socials. Yeah.
That just got you. I want to see if we can talk a little bit about some strategies. And I know you have a lot of, you talked about them. You can get them at those links. So I'll definitely have that.
Yeah. Tell me.
Tell me about the 4 strategies, 4 strategic steps to take alignment action.
Aligned action. Yeah. So that's my retrospective exercise, which also is on the site. You can download as well. I love this to help businesses and individuals get aligned and what they're meant to do next. So a lot of people are in the doing, do, but they have no idea is it going in the direction that they originally intended. So you need to have a retrospective on like, what was my original goal and how am I doing towards it? And you ask these, it's 3 questions and then an action at the end. So it's 4 steps. So the first question is to celebrate what has been going really well against that original goal, target, whatever you were trying to go after, so that you could celebrate all the things that inched you towards it since the time you said it or the last time you checked in. So what's going really well? And then you ask the question, what do I need to stop doing? It's so rare that people ask themselves this because they think they have to keep doing things. But really, if you take the minute to assess it and be like, is there anything that's going on that I need to stop doing? Like, do I need to stop following up with this specific client because they truly are not buying from me? Or do I need to stop this service at this lower rate and raise my prices because I'm doing extra and I never set a boundary? Like, things like that. You want to list out what you need to stop doing to get clear on, again, what no longer fits where you're trying to go. And then the third question is, what do you need to start doing? And this is how you create your action list towards what you want next. And so in that action list also helps you define, oh, well, we really want to accomplish XYZ. I think we need to start doing this. And this is a really great exercise to do with teams, anybody who's working with you, because they will all have input and they'll come up with things that you're like, oh yeah, like we really do need to stop doing. I didn't even know you were doing that still. Let's stop that, right? But let's start doing this. So those 3 are the 3 main questions. And the 4th step is to now say, what is the best thing for us to take action on now? And I always like to do this in a minimum of 30-day containers. So like every 30 days, continue to do this retrospective exercise, because then you will be walking in aligned action every 30 days. Some people do it weekly, right? Some people find the alignment in needing to check in every week this way, depending on what stage you are in your business, or are you trying to launch something? Like, you don't want too much time to pass, but it really builds transparency as to what's going on, and then an aligned action plan as to what to do next.
I love that. I love that. Definitely, that's something that anyone that is either in the journey of entrepreneurial should definitely step into and do that. The other one that I find very interesting, I want you to also elaborate, is how to identify and monetize your unique zone of genius.
Yeah. So knowing your zone of genius is really critical. And it is actually it's like the second part of that strategic life planning workbook that I had shared. But to identify your zone of genius, first step is to understand what lights you up. Like, what are the things that you do or have done that you like would do all day long? And even if you didn't get paid, you'd be like excited to do it, right? Because a lot of the times we sway away from what lights us up to earn. And I love to say, well, what lights you up and how do we figure out how to earn from that? Like, that's earning from your zone of genius. Like, what lights you up? You know, are there things that light you up, Cesar? We could do it live. Like, so you tell me, like, what are the things that light you up and get excited that if you did all day long?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I definitely like to do is really connect with people and figure out how I can help them, create something, right? So talking to people. For sure. Yeah.
Love it. Connection. Awesome. Yeah. So connection's deep. And then your zone of genius based on connection is this problem solving, it sounds like.
Yep.
Like finding solutions to what their needs are or figuring out how they can maybe do it better. Right.
Yep.
Like, so if you did that all day long, you would be so filled up. Right.
Yeah.
So where does that show up today in your business? How do you do that in your business today?
So right now I do that through a couple of different things. One is through this podcast.
Yes.
The other one is I also do coaching and mentoring. I don't do as much, so I do that and on business.
Yeah.
And then I do that a lot on events. So I do a lot of events like self-development events. So all of those things kind of light me up.
Yeah, 100%. Right. But
sure. Yeah.
But you see how you show up in service and fill your own heart up. But you actually found a way to monetize it, because those things you just mentioned, I know you don't do for free all the time. Sometimes, yes, it's gifting, makes sense. But what a beautiful thing, right? Like, you've been able to find the space and the role you want to play in life and build a business out of it. That is how you monetize your zone of genius. You first have to figure out what your zone of genius is, and then you figure out how does it fit into an earning model for you. And so that's what that is, right? Like, a lot of people don't even take the time to understand what their zone of genius is that lights them up. And so that's always step one. And then how you monetize it. Now you lead everything with that in mind. So if you're someone that works in corporate and you're going after a job in someone else's company, now you know that's your zone. Go find the companies that will allow you to do it, right? And make sure if you're doing that all day long, obviously, yes, you'll receive a check. But it's not going to be just about the check, right? And that's been the problem with this mass exodus we're seeing from these companies, is that these people were accepting a check for things that didn't light them up, or they were in an environment that didn't light them up. So we have that ability to do it if you focus on your zone of genius and then put that first. For your ask.
Now, what if obviously I might be on a 9 to 5. I find that that's not where I want to be. I find my zone of genius. And kind of I know what fulfills me. Yeah. And so now it's like, well, again, I'm not an entrepreneur. I think that's where I need to go, or I need to have some form of that. How did I find the place to be able to start fulfilling that? How did I find
to either, let's say, okay, so you turned your zone of genius into entrepreneurial ventures, right? For yourself. And prior to that, would you say you stood in your zone of genius employed by others?
I would probably say to an extent. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
like
just based on the roles that I was playing in corporate America, definitely I would say that was in alignment with that. And stepping out of that, I wasn't doing any of that, because I got into just real estate investing, which I still do. And then I found out about doing all this other stuff down the line, right?
To build people. So you've met a necessity for earnings to then find space, right? Because I think that's where the value of financial freedom is the space to invest back in ourselves as to what we truly want out of life. Right. And I think when you're going through that transition of corporate work or working in someone else's company, to go after your own. So even if you're a solopreneur, even if you're only selling your own service for money, which is that next step, that self-employment step, you have to be ready to know that that's also very entrepreneurial. Like, you have to understand all the other aspects of doing it on your own. And I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone, you know, and I do think we all need solid team members as part of our companies to show up in their gifting to grow together. Right. So it's about alignment with the right leadership. But in that transition that you're talking about, that's the first step. It's really, if you have a skill and you know that if you did that all the time, that's your zone of genius. Sometimes you discover your zone of genius needs refinement in order to sell it out in the market. So there could be a way to invest in yourself, certain certifications to like really hone in on being able to sell yourself individually on that. It could be that you need more experience. So maybe you're freelancing, right? And that's the first step, is to take that skill and go freelance it. There's a site, I don't know if you're aware of it, called Upwork, where you can post yourself as a freelancer for a specific skill set. And then people who find you at the right rate, right, will engage you on that project work. And it's a really great way to build a portfolio of service with clients, and also discover, is this right for you? Right. Like, is what I thought was my zone of energy, like my zone of genius of heart of service. Well, I can serve in so many ways. Do I want to go serve and be a barista? Or do I want to serve entrepreneurs and help them build their 7-figure businesses? You know, like there's a skill set in there that's different. So you also have to align which skills come with your zone of genius so that you can then sell yourself, because you're the product and service, to others, whether that's within a company or on your own.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, Kareen, I got to tell you, there's so many golden nuggets you've dropped. So let me see if I can get a couple more from you before I let you go.
Okay.
Obviously, you know, we talked about the mindset, and I think that's huge. So are there any things that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep you on this positive state of mind and kind of keep you going in your journey? What do you do?
Oh, my rituals. I love my rituals. I started to call my rituals my self-love session, because that's when I like just love on myself every morning, in the sense of, I believe discipline is the highest form of love. That's just one of my ways I care for myself. So every morning I wake up and I have a meditation space. I light my candles. I journal first. I get all my morning thoughts out. Sometimes they're negative. Sometimes I turn them into gratitude later, but I have to get them out of my system. And then I set my intention for the day. I sit in meditation or I do breath work to really just then reconnect to my body, because so many times we can come out of a sleep state and just sleep through the day without truly like grounding ourselves in like, what is happening now and how can I be intentional now? And then I move my body. So I'll do a workout of some sort to sweat. And those are the fun things you get to see if you follow me on Instagram, because I share them all the time, because I believe like you could see me like this. All made up, or you could see me hot and sweaty from a workout. Like to me, that just in case we ever meet on the street, either version is real. And then I get ready for my day, you know, so that I can be present, because if I give to myself first through my daily rituals in the morning, then I can serve all day long. In the past, I used to just go from depletion, and that was good for nobody. So that's really important for me to keep my mind right, is to do those rituals and serve myself first before anyone else. And then I can go all day. You know, like I have breathwork sessions too that I host, and tonight I have one. So today I go until almost 9:30 p.m. But it's because I took care of myself. I'm able to have the stamina for it.
Nice. So you also host breathwork
sessions.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's group sessions, virtual. So that's breathewithkareen.com if anyone wants to join or learn more about breathwork. It has been life-changing for me to give myself the space for my own practice in breathwork, but also host these sessions with people, and the messages I get afterwards of them giving themselves that time has been really cool. That's the healer side of me.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And I gotta say, I did that probably maybe 2 years ago,
Ah,
maybe a little bit more. That I started doing breath work, and definitely is something that I will endorse and say anyone or recommend for anyone to do. If you haven't got into that, definitely you need to do that, because it's definitely it's a sense of being able to be grounded. It helps you many different ways. You see a lot of different things. Clarity will show up for you in many different ways. So definitely,
I like it for the releasing too. Like
yeah,
it gives you this moment of like getting rid of the energy that is not for you anymore, you
yeah.
know? And it's
I,
just beautiful. I'm so glad that you've had that experience too, because and it's fun. There's so many different techniques out there
yeah,
too.
right.
That it's just such a gift.
Yeah, I know the first time I did it, definitely I didn't know there was so much going on,
Oh,
and I had such a major release, and
yeah.
I was bawling for I don't know from where it
It's
just
so great though. It's
yeah,
so
yeah,
great.
it is for sure. And, and so
You have
again,
no idea that
yeah,
it's pent
it'll do
up, but
something to you.
it's
I'm like,
so
where did this
great.
come from? Where did this come from? But yeah, it's definitely something great for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. My last question for you
Yeah.
is for the people that are watching us and listening to us, if they are going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one or a few things you can say that they can start doing so they can start overcoming that challenge?
Great. So first I would say I believe you. Like we're not believed in enough, but I believe you are feeling challenged. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is that I also believe you can make it different if you choose to. So choose to make it better and then seek out the help that you need. Ask for help. It's one of the hardest things we're not really trained well on doing is to ask people to listen. Sometimes it's just simply just listen. Don't solve it. Just listen to me, right? Sometimes it's a matter of getting it out through a journaling exercise and getting it out of your system to really identify, well, what is going on? What am I feeling challenged by? And then ask yourself, who or what do I need to learn or do to make it different? And give yourself the permission to make it different. Because a challenge is just a moment in time of something that's a little bit off center. It's just a little bit off. You can dial it back to where it needs to be or throw it out the window and start with something else.
Yeah.
But know that the challenge is just a notification. It's a way of telling you something needs to be different. So face it and trust that there are people around you that can help you get through it if you need it. But be truthful to yourself.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And as you mentioned, there's a choice, and you got to choose. Where do you want to be? And I do believe that the choices and decisions that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. And if we make the wrong choice, we have the ability to pivot immediately and make a different choice, and don't just stay hung up on that. So I love
That's
that.
right. Yeah. We're adults. I also like to tell people you're an adult. You're, generally watching this. So you can choose like
Yeah.
what you do next.
Yeah.
Adult it. Like step up into that adulthood.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the beauty.
Yeah, I definitely love that. No, Kareen, I got to tell you, I had such a great time. And as you mentioned, I can probably go on and on this with you for sure.
Yep. Told you can't turn it off, man.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is good. This is good. So again, thank you for being on the show. Really appreciate you being here. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, I really appreciate meeting with you and having this conversation. And I hope your listeners and viewers are even more into what you have created and the platform that you've put together, because it's needed. So Thank you for having me on the show. And if I could be of service to your audience, like I just hope they reach out, and hopefully we'll have a conversation again soon.
Yeah, no, I'd love it. Definitely. Well, thank you again for all of that. And for those that are watching and listening, do me a favor, go ahead and connect with Kareen on her social media. Go to Amazon, pick up her books. Go ahead and just do me a favor and share this message, because definitely somebody needs to hear this message. And I'll see you guys to the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.